Hi, it's Summer, and this is my March and April wrap-up. I have a lot of books to talk about, so I'm just gonna get right into it. The first book that I read in March was Heartless Hunter by Kristen Cicerelli. This is the UK edition because I liked the cover better, so I guess in the UK it's called The Crimson Moth, which honestly I kind of think is a better title. Anyway though, it's called Heartless Hunter in the States. I gave this one 4.5 stars. I loved it. This one is a romantasy that involves witches and witch hunters and blood magic. The magic system was so unique and just really interesting to read about. I started the audiobook for this one on my drive to work, and it was all I could think about during my shift. I was just like addicted to it. I also enjoyed the setting. In my review, I said the forbidden romance felt so high stakes, but I was also rooting for the other person in the love triangle. It was a little predictable, but overall it was a solid YA romance. As far as the plot goes, this one follows Rune, who is a witch, and witches in this world are like hunted down and killed. It's really dangerous to be a witch, especially a practicing witch. By day, she is a socialite, and by night, she is the Crimson Moth, who is working to help captured witches go free or to help get them out of the country. The back says, but her next rescue demands that she court Gideon Sharp, a notorious witch hunter and unforgiving revolutionary. He is hunting the Crimson Moth and doesn't know that it's her. It's so good. Like I said, the stakes were so high, especially with some of the other people that are like in her circle. The other person that's kind of in this like love triangle kind of situation especially like makes it a little bit more complicated. Definitely worth the hype. It honestly could maybe even be bumped up to a 5. I really liked it. After that, I read Wings of Starlight by Allison Saft. This is kind of like a Pixie Hollow prequel, and it follows Queen Clarion and her kind of like forbidden romance. The fairies in Pixie Hollow are separated by warm season fairies and cold season fairies. Because of the extreme temperature differences and how their wings are made, they can't cross over the border into each other's lands without like being really injured or their wings dying. But there are some creatures that are coming out of the winter lands, so Clarion has to work with the warden of the winter woods to try and figure out this monster problem, and they catch feelings for each other. She's also just kind of struggling with like her queenly duties. She's the new queen, or she's going to be crowned the new queen, and she's just having a hard time with like coming to terms with what her life is going to be like. I gave this one 3 stars, and I think this is my 3rd book from Allison Saft. In my review, I said I loved the setting of this and getting to visit Pixie Hollow. It was so nostalgic and I loved the vibes. I really liked the writing and that it was set in a world that we're already familiar with. It felt a little bit long and repetitive though, and overall I don't think that it will be something that sticks with me. I was also a little bit disappointed by the ending. Maybe if you're already familiar with the lore around Clarion, you won't be surprised, but as someone who knew nothing about her going in, I was expecting something a little bit different. It was also hard to figure out the tone of this book when it came to the romance. There were basically no other couples in Pixie Hollow, and I had a lot of questions. Like, is it normal for fairies to date? Is dating and romance rare? So this was cute. I liked it. I'm glad that I read it, but it's not a new favorite. After that, I read a poetry arc called Make Believe Poems for Hoping Again by Victoria Hutchins. I gave this one 3 stars. I got an e-arc for this one through NetGalley. For my review, I said I enjoyed this collection and I think that it will be perfect for those that are just getting into poetry. I liked the themes and that I could understand and relate to most of it. There were a lot of poems that I really liked, but a lot of it was just okay and not as memorable. I think that it could have been shortened and still gotten the point across. This is a list of my favorite poems from the collection, and I also enjoyed the passage, "Open the door when pain knocks, but leave the porch light on for joy." And also another passage that says, "We forget. From outside the cocoon, it looks like nothing is happening." After that, I read Rebel Witch by Kristen Cicerelli, which is the sequel to Heartless Hunter. I gave this one 3.5 stars. In my review, I said, I'm so glad this was just a duology instead of a series. More fantasy series should be doing this, in my opinion. This one was a little bit predictable and it also felt really repetitive, but I still had a fun time and the ending was satisfying. Next, I read The Last Room on the Left by Leah Conan. This one is an isolated thriller set during the winter, and it follows the main character Carrie, who is an author, and she has a big deadline coming up, so to be able to meet her deadline and to stay on track with her writing, she decides to kind of copy The Shining a little bit and go and stay by herself as a motel caretaker during the winter. So she's all by herself, kind of forced to work. She is struggling with alcoholism, so she's a little bit of an untrustworthy narrator. One day from the room that she's staying in, she looks out into the snow and she can see a hand poking out of it. So she's stuck kind of like out of the way in the woods by herself with no cell reception with a potential dead body. And she's worried that the killer is still out there and that she could be next. I gave this one 2.5 stars. I said this was entertaining enough for me to keep listening to the audiobook, but it was really predictable. Also, the epilogue was dumb. I did like the isolated setting though. I don't even remember what the epilogue was, to be honest. But yeah, it was very predictable. I caught on to what was happening in the first few chapters and was just kind of like waiting for everyone to catch up to me. It was just okay. After that, I read another poetry arc through NetGalley. This one is A Little Daylight Left by Sarah Kay. I gave this one 5 stars. I loved it. In my review, I said, this is the feeling I will chase each time I pick up a new collection. It was full of cheeky, sad, happy, and relatable poems that were so vivid in my mind. The second section is where I really fell in love with Sarah's writing and knew that this would be a new favorite. I really enjoyed and related to many of the themes present in this collection. Love, loss, friendship, creativity, grief, and I loved her descriptive word choice combined with the purposeful layout and rhythm. I don't think I'll ever stop thinking about this one. I have a couple of favorite quotes or passages. One of them is, "And if your old friend ever picked up the phone again, you would say, wherever you've been was where you needed to be, and whoever you are now, welcome back, beloved." And then I also really liked, I could learn to be patient if I knew there would always be a you to love. I had a bunch of favorite poems from this collection, so here's a list of them. I know that poetry is really subjective, but I really loved this and I definitely recommend it. After that, I listened to another romantasy audiobook. I read Spark of the Everflame by Penn Cole. I gave this one 3 stars. To be so honest with you, I don't remember anything about this book. I don't remember the magic system. Like, I'm gonna have to read the synopsis for sure. Even after the synopsis, I don't think I remember very much. The main character's name is Diem, and her mother has recently gone missing. Diem, I think, is training to be a healer, and she has the opportunity to go and take care of the king who is sick, and she ends up kind of getting close to him and the royal family. The king's heir is keeping like a really close eye on her, and so it's kind of like enemies to lovers, I think. And there's also kind of like a rebellion group that I think is trying to get her to join them, and she can be like their insider in the palace or something. I think I already said I gave this 3 stars. For this one, I said the world building and magic in this one was super interesting and fully developed / easy to jump into, but the female main character was so annoying. She kept making dumb decisions, and I was waiting the whole book for her to catch up to what I already knew was going on. I think someone newer to fantasy might like this more than me, but as a seasoned romantasy reader, this was very predictable. I still enjoyed the writing, setting, and side characters enough to continue in the series, and I've seen other reviews that felt the same way as me, saying that the next book gets better. And spoiler, the next book did not get better because I DNF'd it at 63%. I normally do not rate books that I DNF, but I felt like since I made it over the halfway point, I deserved to mark it as read and give it a rating. So I gave Glow of the Everflame 1 star. I said Diem is annoying as fuck and all of the miscommunication was killing me. I also didn't really feel like anything was happening and like the book was too long. It also just isn't a very original story. It feels like a mix of lots of other fantasy and sci-fi books. So needless to say, I will not be continuing in that series. After that, I read another romantasy. This one is Phantasma by Kaylee Smith. I gave this one 3.5 stars. This one is about our main character who follows her sister into a deadly, or I guess potentially deadly competition. If you win these games, I think that you win a lot of money or something. The main character finds out that her sister has entered, and so she also enters the competition to go in and try and get her sister to forfeit and go home. But I think that they're put in like different groups or something, so they won't be able to see each other until farther into the competition. So the main character is forced to kind of compete and stay alive until then. There are these kind of like demon ghost people that are kind of the like guides of the games, and they add a lot of like chaos to the story. One of these ghost demon people is of course dark and brooding and is helping our main character. This one was good, but not a new all-time favorite. This also has OCD rep in it that I thought was pretty well done. I don't have OCD, but I have a few people in my life that do, and from what I've heard them talk about and from what I've researched about OCD, I feel like it was pretty accurate representation. So if you have OCD, I would be interested to see or to hear what you thought about this book. One of my absolute biggest pet peeves in the entire world is when people say, oh, I'm so OCD, I just have to have everything neat and tidy and just so, when like that's not real OCD. Like that can be aspects of it for people, but in reality it's like debilitating, constant, intrusive thoughts that you're like battling in your mind all the time. So I really appreciated that this book didn't just kind of like play into that stigma. It doesn't actually say that she has OCD, because I think in a fantasy world maybe that would kind of like pull you out of the story if they actually said she has obsessive compulsive disorder. But the way that her symptoms are described and like what she's dealing with, if you know what it is, it's pretty clear that that's what she's dealing with. I haven't seen very many books, especially fantasy books, kind of go into that section of mental health, so I thought that was kind of cool. After that, I read Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez. I have an entire reading vlog for this one where I go into spoilers and non-spoilers. This was the first book that I read in April, and I was really excited to see this as an April ALC pick from Libro.fm. So I listened to this one on audio and I really enjoyed the audiobook. I originally gave this book 4 stars, but now that I've had some time away from it, and also this was my in-person book club pick for last month, so after talking to everybody else at book club about it, I decided to bump it down to 3.5 stars, maybe even 3 stars. Right now I'm going with 3.5. I loved the banter and the depth of the characters, which is something that I always love about Abby's books. I feel like she does a really good job at writing realistic characters that talk realistically to each other. I love like the inside jokes and things that she includes. My main problem with this one though was that it was just so sad, and I wish that it would have had a little bit more of like happy things happening to kind of balance it out a little bit. The bad things that were happening to these characters, it was just like relentless, and it did not feel necessary at all. I'm like, pick 1 or 2 things, don't include literally every sad thing that could ever happen. Like, it just felt like too much in my opinion. Now after a few weeks, some other things that I didn't think would bug me as much but have really like kind of stuck with me and made me bump the book down were the pop culture references. There were too many of them and they were just really, really cheesy. I especially didn't like Xavier, the male main character, being compared to Rhysand from the ACOTAR series multiple times. Like, it was literally like 4, 5, 6 times that it was brought up, and I think even in like one chapter it was brought up like 3 separate times. Like, it's kind of fun to have an Easter egg from one of your other favorite books be mentioned, but I thought that it was a little bit lazy because you're just kind of relying on the reader to use an entire other character to just infer what this character is supposed to be like, instead of putting in the work to make them their own, which Abby did give Xavier his own personality and he is his own character, but you're also just kind of like comparing them to each other the whole time because she compared Xavier to Rhysand. So the whole time I was just like constantly being reminded that he's supposed to be Rhysand, and it was just kind of annoying. Also, there were a few of the girls in my book club that hadn't read ACOTAR yet, so they just had like no idea who he was even being compared to, and they felt kind of frustrated by that. And given, I think most people that are going to read ACOTAR like have already read it or decided that they don't want to, but that was just something that was kind of talked about at book club. Also, just the fact that pop culture references really date a book, and it kind of affects the longevity of a book sometimes for people. It's still a 3.5, so like I still enjoyed my time reading this book, especially the beginning. It's just not like my new all-time favorite Abby Jimenez book or anything. I think that my favorite from her so far is Just for the Summer. After that, I listened to another ALC from Libro.fm. It was Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. I also gave this one 3.5 stars. Also, I'm just realizing that I didn't say what Say You'll Remember Me is about. I feel like everybody pretty much already knows though. In case you don't though, it's about Sam and Xavier. She rescues a cat one day and takes it into Xavier's vet clinic. They don't start off on the right foot, so it's a little bit of like enemies to lovers. On her second visit to his clinic though, they have this like really funny banter and they end up agreeing to go on a date later that night. Just like every other Abby book though, there's a lot more to the story. They both have their own things going on with their families that are really hard, and they just kind of are there helping each other through it. So yeah, like I said though, I do have a whole entire vlog for it if you want more like in-depth thoughts and plot points and stuff. Back to Great Big Beautiful Life though. It's about these 2 writers that are competing to do a profile on, I don't remember if she's an actor or if she was just like a socialite back in the day, or maybe she was like an heiress to a big company that her family owned or something. Anyway though, she's a prominent person in history. And she has selected these 2 writers to spend a few weeks with her and interview her, and then at the end of it she'll pick whose piece she likes more and who she wants to continue working with. It might actually be like a biography and not just like a profile piece on her. I think it's like a book deal. It takes place in a small coastal town though, and I loved those vibes, and I really enjoyed the interview aspect of the book. It was definitely giving Evelyn Hugo vibes. I think that I remember it feeling like kind of slow, like I didn't love the pacing, and it was just okay. Next I read Pucking Sweet, which is the 3rd book in the Jacksonville Rays series. I didn't rate this one and I didn't write a review, mostly because this was just like a guilty pleasure read and I really don't remember a whole lot about it. It's a Why Choose Hockey romance. It follows Poppy, who is the PR director for the Jacksonville Rays hockey team, and she gets involved with 2 of the hockey players. It was just a fun time, and I needed something just like quick and fun and easy to read. After that, I read A Study in Drowning by Ava Reed. I gave this one 2 stars, which was really surprising to me. I thought this was going to be like 5 stars, just from everything that I've heard about this author and what they write, and just like the cover looking like it's like dark academia and magic. I thought it was going to be like a new favorite book. This one is about the main character, Effie, who is studying architecture at school, I'm pretty sure, even though she wants to be doing like literature studies. But at this university, women aren't allowed to study literature. She's like obsessed with this author and his works. She knows all of it like by heart, and she has studied it for most of her life. As an architecture student, she's chosen to go and work on this late author's manor that's kind of falling apart. His son is going to have like a bunch of renovations done to it, and he wanted someone who was like studying at the university to help like draw up the plans for it or something. So she has ulterior motives going there. She wants to learn more about this author. And when she gets there, she runs into a guy who's also studying at her university, but he's part of the literature program, and he is trying to unravel a mystery, I think. There's just like weird things happening at this manor. And it's also kind of like flooding. Like this whole entire town, I think, is like flooding because it's close to the ocean. So the title is very fitting. For my review, I said I loved the writing style and atmosphere of this, so I'll definitely check out something else from this author in the future. I didn't like Effie's character, and the book was mostly just confusing, especially the ending, which was also a little bit anticlimactic. After that, I read another Why Choose romance. I read The Charlie Method by Elle Kennedy. I gave this one 3 stars. I think this one is a college romance. This was just a fun, easy read, and I also really liked the adoption plotline. The main character is adopted and she is like finding her birth family. If I'm remembering right, this one starts out with her finding these 2 guys on a dating app, and it kind of goes from there. One of the guy's classmates writes this like really cheesy, funny, over-the-top fan fiction, and she has him like proofread the chapters, and so in between the real chapters of the book we get like little sections of her fan fiction, and I thought those were really funny and just kind of like a fun addition to the book. It was just something fun that I didn't have to take too seriously. Next, I read Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. I gave this one 2.5 stars. This one is childhood friends to lovers, second chance romance. The female main character, Percy, spent every summer at the lake growing up, and she became best friends with one of the boys that lived at the lake. His name is Sam. They started dating in high school, I think, and then had a bad breakup / falling out in college, and they haven't talked to each other since. But Percy is returning back to the lake after Sam's mother has passed away, and she's going to be there just to be there for him. In my review, I said I liked this, but there were definitely a lot of things that weren't my favorite. There was something that happened on the same day as the mom's funeral that I just didn't really like. I know that everybody grieves differently, but I just didn't like it. And I also just didn't really like Percy's character. The setting was so fun though. I loved the lake. And I also liked hearing about the summers that these kids spent together at the lake. After that, I read The Roughest Draft by Emily Wibberley and Austin Sigmund Broca. This one is about 2 authors that co-wrote a book together that was a bestseller, but after writing the book they had a really big falling out and they haven't worked together or talked since. It says, facing a crossroads in their personal and professional lives, they're forced to reunite. They're back in the small Florida town where they wrote their first book, and they're working on a second one. So it's a little bit of like forced proximity of them having to work together and like live in the same house while they are working through the problems that they have with each other. I gave this one 2 stars. It just felt very boring and one note. I didn't care for the romance and the pacing just wasn't good. Also, the word prose was used so many times. It just wasn't my favorite, but it also wasn't the worst book I've ever read either, so it was fine. After that, I read another romance. This one's called For the Fans by Nyla K. I gave this one 4 stars, but it's probably closer to a 3.5. I don't really know for sure. I do still think about this book every once in a while, so I'm just like not really sure if it's a 3.5 or a 4, but I really liked it. The cover and the title are like not good, but I did really enjoy the story. I already know that this one won't be for everyone though. This one is a stepbrother romance. They become stepbrothers like pretty late in life though, like they don't grow up together. Their parents get married when they're like towards the end of high school, and they definitely start off as enemies. The main characters are Kyron and Avi. Kyron is popular and he's a football star, and Avi is a stoner artist type. They both end up going to the same college, and they do their best to avoid each other since they don't like each other. But after their family financial situation kind of takes a turn, they have to figure out how they're going to pay for the rest of their college. Avi has a friend who has an OnlyFans account, and so she kind of like shows him the ropes, and he starts an OnlyFans account to pay for his school. And Kyron kind of gets roped into it as well. For my review, I said this wasn't the best thing I've ever read, and it could definitely be cringe at times. It said the phrase "for the fans" and the word "baby" so many times. It was really annoying, but I really enjoyed this one. I really liked the enemies to lovers and the character development. The steamy scenes were also a good time. I normally have a problem with romance books being longer than 350 pages, but with this one, it didn't bother me as much because I was just having fun. It wasn't all steam and cute romance though. It definitely has depth, and I suggest looking into triggers before jumping into this one. There was a scene towards the end between one of the main characters and his mom that almost made me cry, and I think it healed some of my religious trauma. So it wasn't like a literary masterpiece or anything, but it was a fun, steamy book that actually had some depth to it that I wasn't really expecting from it, and I would actually really recommend it if you are looking for a queer romance. Next, I read Raiders of the Lost Heart by Jo Segura. I gave this one 3 stars. This one is about the main character who is a female archaeologist, and she has a kind of like sketchy, too good to be true opportunity to go and work on a dig of like her life's work basically, or it's at least like a case or a mystery that's close to her heart. She might have like family ties to it, and she wrote her thesis on it. When she gets there, she finds out that the leader of this expedition is one of her academic rivals, so they kind of butt heads, and it's about them working together to get to the bottom of this mystery and like fix some of the problems that are going on with the dig. For this one, I said this was fun, but I wish that it was a little bit more slow burn. It was also a little bit too cheesy and corny, and I wish that it would have taken itself a little bit more seriously. It felt like a steamy romance with not as much plot, and with a story like this, I really wanted more of the adventure. The mysteries were also underwhelming. It was still a fun, easy read, and I think I'll continue in the series. If you had similar feelings to me, I would recommend Empire of Shadows by Jacqueline Benson. I think with this genre of books, like adventure, archaeology type of stuff, I think that I prefer historical fiction like Empire of Shadows, What the River Knows. I feel like those ones just feel a little bit more like not cheesy, and usually the humor feels a little bit more like charming and not as cheesy. After that, I read Dollar Gut Dream Department Store by Lee Mi. I wanted to read this one because the cover is so pretty, and also because someone on TikTok recommended it as a book that has Studio Ghibli vibes. This one is very whimsical and quirky and fantastical. It's set in this kind of like fantasy dream world. When humans fall asleep, their consciousness goes to this world, and they get to go into these department stores and purchase dreams that they get to have. Each floor of the department store specializes in a different type of dream. Also, one of the jobs in this world is that you can be a dream writer, where you write and create these dream experiences to be sold to a dream department store. There's also awards for these writers for like the most popular dream, and like people anticipate the release of like new works from these writers. It tackles a lot of the different aspects of dreams and like even touches on nightmares. If I didn't already say, I gave this one 3 stars. I liked this one, and I thought that it was very unique, very different from anything that I've read before. I don't really know if it gave me Studio Ghibli vibes. It was a cool story though, and it was a really fast read. After that, I read Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. I gave this one 3.5 stars. I should have prefaced this video with the fact that I haven't really had the best luck with books the last couple of months, at least as far as like novels. Poetry collections I feel like I've had good luck with, but actual like stories and novels, I haven't been able to get out of like this 3.5 bubble, and it's killing me. I'm still in it. I haven't had anything really above 3.5 stars in like 2 months, and I'm so ready for a 5-star book, or even just a 4-star book, like a solid 4-star where I'm like sure about the rating. Anyway though, Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. It's a STEM romance. The main character is Rue, and she's a biotech engineer at this company. She works in like food science. The other main character is Eli, and him and his business partners are kind of working to kind of take down this company, or not take it down, but like buy it and like take it over. So Rue really does not like him or his friends because she loves her job, she loves her boss. But Rue and Eli are like really attracted to each other, and so they're kind of like fighting this attraction because Rue feels like it would be really disloyal to her boss, who is also one of her close friends. So it's kind of like a forbidden romance. I said this was cute and steamy, and I really liked the audiobook. It had dual narration. The relationship dynamic felt different than most romances that I've been reading lately, which was nice. I also appreciated the female main character's struggles with food, and that it was something that was explored in this book. It wasn't a new favorite though, and it also kind of felt like it couldn't decide whether it wanted to be a STEM romance or a sports romance. I don't completely remember what I meant when I was talking about the relationship dynamic being different, so I can't really specify what I meant there. And then the last book that I read in April was another poetry collection. This was the Central Avenue Poetry Prize for 2025. The editor is Bo Adler. I gave this one 4 stars. For most poetry prizes, there's like a theme that the poets have to kind of like base their poems around. And for some reason, I didn't look into that before I read the collection, so I can't even tell you like what the theme for this collection was or anything. But I did really like the poems. I liked that I got to sample so many different poets and their work, and so many different writing styles. Here is a list of my favorite poems from the collection. And then some of the quotes that I really enjoyed were the age-old question of whether I wanted to be him or be with him, from the poem Pink Paraphernalia, which as a queer person I really related to. Like, do I want to be her or do I want to be with her? I should have known earlier. And then also the quote, our finest hour was when we set each other free. Our seed burned, but still I turned into a tree, from the poem I Regret Not Telling You. Those are all of the books that I've read in the last 2 months. I don't think I had a single 5-star that wasn't poetry. So hopefully in my next wrap up, I'll have some 4 and 5 stars to talk about. I feel like it's partially maybe like my reading mood or something, like being in a slump, but also I feel like I'm being a little bit more ruthless with my ratings. So I don't know, maybe 4 and 5 stars are really gonna have to be earned for me in the future. I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you read any of the same books as me. Let me know if you had any of my same thoughts and feelings on any of them. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.
Appalachian sunrise.